Greetings, fellow browncoats. Well, Firefly February now comes to a conclusion as we take a look at the feature film Serenity. In the 26th century, humanity is colonized a new solar system. The central planets formed the Alliance and went to work against the outer planet Independence, who resisted joining the Alliance. River Tam was conditioned by Alliance scientists into becoming a psychic and an assassin, but is soon rescued by her brother, Dr. Simon Tam. During her training, River inadvertently reads the minds of several top government officials and learned their secrets. Consequently, an Alliance agent known only as the Operative is tasked with recapturing her. The siblings have found refuge aboard the transport spaceship Serenity with Captain Malcolm Mal Reynolds, his first mate Zoe Washburn, pilot Hoban Washburn, mercenary Jane Cobb, and mechanic Kaylee Fry. Despite Simon's objections, Mel brings River on a bank robbery. River warns him that savage and cannibalistic reavers are coming. They escape, but Simon decides he and River will leave Serenity at the next port. Once there, a subliminal message in a television commercial causes River to tag numerous bar patrons, and Mel takes his siblings back aboard the ship. The crew contacts reclusive hacker Mr. Universe, who discovers the message designed to trigger River's mental conditioning. He notes River whispered Miranda before attacking and warns that someone else has viewed the footage. Mal receives an invitation from Minara Sarah. Realizing it is a trap, Mal goes to confront the operative who promises to let him go free if he hands over River. Mal barely escapes. Miranda is discovered to be a planet located beyond a region of space swarming with reavers. The crew flies to Planet Haven but find it devastated and their friend Shepard Book mortally wounded. The operative promises to kill anyone who assists them until he gets River. Mal has the crew disguise Serenity as a reaver ship and they travel to Miranda undetected. They find its 30 million colonists dead, and a recording that explains an experimental chemical to suppress aggression had been added to Miranda's atmosphere. The population became so docile they stopped performing all activities of daily living and placidly died. A small proportion of them had the opposite reaction, became insanely aggressive and violent. The Alliance had created the Reavers, and this was a secret in River's subconscious. Mr. Universe agrees to broadcast the recording. However, the operative kills him and prepares an ambush. Knowing this, the crew provoke the Reaver fleet into chasing them toward the Alliance armada. The Reavers and Alliance battle while Wash pilots Serenity through the crossfire. He lands near the broadcast tower before being fatally impaled by a Reaver spear. The crew make a last stand against the Reavers to buy Mal time to broadcast the recording. The crew retreats behind a set of blast doors that fail to properly close. Simon is shot, and River dives through the doors to throw back Simon's medical kit and close the doors before the Reavers drag her away. At the transmitter, Mal fights the operative, finally subduing him and forcing him to watch as the recording is broadcast. Mal returns to the crew. The blast doors open to reveal that River has killed all the Reavers. The operative orders the Alliance troops to stand down. The operative provides medical aid and resources to repair Serenity. He tells Mal that broadcast is weak in the Alliance government, but he will try to convince the Parliament that River and Simon are no longer threats, he warns that they may continue their pursuit in retribution for getting the word out. Serenity takes off, with River as Mal's new pilot. Nice. So let's take a look at the production of this movie, beginning with the development. The film is based on Firefly, a television series canceled by the Fox Broadcasting Company in December 2002, after 11 of its 14 produced episodes had aired. Attempts to have other networks acquire the series failed, and creator Joss Whedon started to sell it as a film. He began working on a film script since the show's cancellation. Shortly after the cancellation, he contacted Barry Mendel, who was working with Universal Studios, and asked him for a way to continue the series as a film, including as a low-budget television film. Mendel introduced Whedon to then Universal executive Mary Parent. She had seen Firefly and immediately signed on to the project, even though Whedon had yet to create a story. Whedon remarked, quote, "Universal came in where I thought nobody else would, and quite frankly, I'm not sure anybody else would have, with absolute faith, and has maintained it. It's been the easiest process in terms of dealing with a studio that I've ever had. and they turned it into not a blockbuster, which is not what I was trying to make, but not a low-budget movie either. They wanted to make a real movie out of it. They wanted to give us a scope that the show could never have had. So all I had to do was come up with a story that was worth that. In July 2003, Whedon said that though there was an interest in the project, quote, I won't know really until I finish a draft whether or not it's genuine. He felt that any film deal was contingent on keeping the show's original cast. They later said that retaining the cast was never an issue, as Universal executives believed the cast suitable after watching every episode of the series. In early September 2004, a film deal with Universal was publicly confirmed. Universal acquired the rights to Firefly shortly after the confirmation. Whedon felt that the strong sales of the Firefly DVD, which sold out in less than 24 hours after the pre-order announcement, quote, definitely helped light a fire and make them go, okay, we've really got something here. It definitely helped them just be comfortable with the decisions they were making, but they really had been supporting us for quite some time already. Whedon felt it was important people understand that the movie isn't the series, and so the project was titled Serenity. And now on to the writing. After Universal acquired the film rights from Fox, Whedon began writing the screenplay. His task was to explain the premise of a television series that few people had seen without boring new viewers or longtime fans. He based the story on original ideas for Firefly's unfilmed second season. Whedon's original script was 190 pages, and attempted to address all major plot points introduced in the series. After presenting the script to Barry Mendel under the title The Kitchen Sink, Whedon and Mendel collaborated on cutting down the script to a size filmable under his budget constraints. All 9 principal cast members in the television series returned from the movie, but Glass and Tudyk could not commit to sequels, leading to the death of their characters in the second draft of the script. The tightened script and a budget Mendel and Whedon prepared were submitted to Universal on a Friday, and on the following Monday morning, Stacy Snyder, then head of Universal, called Mendel to officially greenlight the movie. Universal planned to begin shooting in October 2003, but delays in finishing the script postponed the start of shooting to June 2004. Alright, and now on to the filming. Principal photography for Serenity was originally estimated to require 80 days, lasting a typical 12 to 14 hours each, with a budget of over $100 million. Owing to prove such a large budget, Universal Studios switched to shoot abroad to minimize production costs. However, Whedon, reluctant to uproot his family, insisted that filming take place locally and maintained that it was possible for local production to cost fewer days and less than half the expected budget. On March 2, 2004, the film was greenlit for production with a budget of under $40 million. At the project's completion, the film spent $39 million, considered low for a science fiction action film featuring heavy special effects. Serenity was filmed over a period of 50 10-hour days, beginning June 3, 2004, and ending on September 17, 2004. The film was primarily shot at Universal Studios sound stages with locations throughout Los Angeles. Sequence for the crew was pursued by Reavers after a bank robbery was filmed along the Templin Highway north of Santa Clarita. The shoot typically would have lasted 30 days, but the production completed filming the sequence in 5 days. Pyrotechnics were shot at Mystery Mesa near Santa Clarita over a period of 3 days rather than a typical 2 weeks. The scenes of the plant in Miranda were filmed at Diamond Ranch High School in Panoma. The production expected to save money by reusing the Serenity ship interior set for the Firefly TV series. However, the set had been built in pieces as episodes called for new rooms on the ship. Using DVD images of the television series as a guide, the set was rebuilt over 14 weeks on Universal Studios stage 12 by 23 supervised crews working independently but in coordination with one another. And now on to the visual effects. As the budget for the film was considerably smaller than for the TV series, practical special effects were used as much as possible. If a CGI composite was required, as many tangible sets and props as possible were constructed to minimize the use of computer effects. The mostly technically challenging scene was the mule skiff chase. For budgetary reasons, A gimbal and CGI, much like those used in the pod race in Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, were quickly rolled out. Instead, the crew fashioned a trailer with a cantilevered arm attached to the hovercraft and shot the scene while riding up Temple Highway north of Santa Clarita. Zoic Studios, the company that produced the graphics for the series, had to perform a complete overhaul of their computer model of Serenity, as the television model would not stand up to the high-definition scrutiny of cinema screens and high-definition video resolution. And now onto the musical score. Excuse me. In pre-production memos, we described his vision for the score as spare, intimate, modern, and indefatigable. Just as the landscape and speech drew from elements of the Western, he wished to stay with the musical style and instrumentation. However, he did almost have too far into Western cliches to cause justified derision, as he hoped the score would also draw from Chinese and other Asian musical elements. He wanted the musical elements mixed up, hidden, or it's as much a cliche as the Western feel. We don't want to be too specific about culture or time. We want to be comfortable enough with the sounds not to let them take us out of the story, but not so comfortable that we begin to be told where the story is. Music was to draw heavily on what would be carried, and he highlighted 4 instruments: voice, percussion, woodwind, strings, particularly guitar. He cautioned against vocal orchestration, believing there would only be 2 voices in Hollywood and wishing to avoid both, and advised moderation in woodwind, but wind instruments to be either too airy or too sophisticated. Universal Studios wanted a composer with experience scoring films, originally Firefly's composer Greg Edmondson. Whedon first thought of Carter Burwell, of whom Whedon was a huge fan. However, Whedon later felt that Burwell was not the right choice because as the film changed, the needs of the score changed as well. Burwell found working on the project difficult as it required he worked opposite to his usual approach. The production would have continued with Burwell, but his other obligations left him little time to compose an entirely new score for Serenity. Burwell was dropped from the project a few weeks before the scheduled February 2005 recording. David Newman was recommended by Universal's music executives, but Whedon requested a composer capable of everything and quickly. Whedon's instructions to Newman for the ship Serenity's theme was something homemade and mournful, evoking the idea of pioneers who had only what they could carry. Whedon wished them to let the viewers know they were now home. Rivertown's theme was played on a uniquely shaped square antique piano that was slightly out of tune. The piano reminded Newman of River and composed a haunted, vaguely Eastern and an achingly unresolved theme that Whedon felt proved Newman's understanding of the film's musical needs. The score was performed by the Hollywood Studio Symphony under Newman's direction. The official soundtrack was released September 27th, 2005. And now finally, let's take a look at some themes and cultural allusions surrounding this movie. While the film depicts the Alliance as an all-powerful, authoritarian-style regime, Whedon knows it is not so simple. The Alliance isn't some evil empire, he explains, but rather a largely benevolent bureaucratic force. The Alliance's main problem is that it seeks to govern everyone, regardless of whether they desire to belong to the central government or not. What the crew of Serenity represent, specifically Mal and his lifestyle, is the idea that people should have the right to make their own decisions, even if those decisions are bad. The operative embodies the Alliance and is, as Whedon describes, the perfect product of what's wrong with the Alliance. He's someone whose motives are to achieve a good end, a world without sin. The operative believes so strongly in this idea that he willingly compromises humanity in furtherance of it. As he himself admits, he would have no place in this world. In contrast, Mal is, at the movie's beginning, a man who has lost all faith. By the movie's ending, Mal has finally come to believe so strongly in something, individual liberty, that he becomes willing to lay down his life to preserve it. Whedon has said the most important line spoken in the film is when Mal forces the operative to watch the Miranda footage at the climax of the film, promising him, "I'm going to show you a world without sin." Whedon makes the point that a world without sin is a world without choice, and the choice is ultimately what defines humanity. According to Whedon, The planet Miranda was seen for William Shakespeare's Miranda in The Tempest, who in Act 5, Scene 1 says, "O brave new world that has such people in it." The spaceship found on the planet Miranda carries the codename C-57D, a reference to the flying saucer in the 1956 film Forbidden Planet. The plot to Forbidden Planet is based on The Tempest, and like Serenity, features a character struggling with the subconscious. The authors had hoped that Miranda would be a new kind of world, filled with peaceful, happy people, who represents the innate optimism of the Alliance. The Fruity Odie bar commercial shown in the Maidenhead Spaceport bar, which carried the subliminal message that Trigger River Tam, is partially inspired by Mr. Sparkle, the mascot of a fictional brand of dishwashing detergent, who was featured in the Simpsons episode In Marge We Trust. Whedon mentions in a DVD feature that when the Fruity Odie bar commercial was being designed, he constantly asked the animators to redesign it and make it even more bizarre than the previous design, until it arrived at the version presented on screen. And why the heck not? Let's talk about the canceled sequel. Fans had hoped that if Serenity had been successful, it might either lead to a sequel or a film trilogy. The first major sequel rumor began on December 1st, 2005, when IGN Film Force reported that Universal had expressed an interest in making a Serenity television movie for broadcast on the Sci-Fi Channel. It was expected that commissioning of a television sequel would be contingent on strong DVD sales of Serenity. In a January 2006 interview, Whedon doubted the chances of a sequel. On October 1st, 2006, Whedon posted a comment to the WhedonS.com website, debunking a rumor that he was working on a sequel. In an interview at the 2007 Comic-Con, Whedon stated that he believes hope for a sequel rests in the sales of the collector's edition DVD. In an August 2007 interview with Amazon.com prior to the collector's edition DVD release, Whedon stated, quote, "It's still on my mind, but I don't know if mine is the only mind that it's on." He later said, quote, "Whether or not anybody who's involved will be available at this point. Everybody's working, I'm happy to say. It's a question. Whether I would want to do another one is not a question." Well, we'll see about that. So overall, I think this movie is a great continuation of the TV show, and yeah, well, it looks like we may or may not get a sequel. I still feel like this is the best place for the franchise to end, so yeah. So overall, I give Serenity 5 Fireflies out of 5. Well, thank you guys so much for checking out Firefly February, and tune in tomorrow's Mystery March 2022 kicks off as we take a look at Season 3 of Veronica Mars, as well as the Veronica Mars movie. Excuse me. So, until it's time to sign off by saying the words I've been saying this whole month. You can't take the sky from me.